I'm a child of the 90s. Third room at the top of the stairs, that's where you can find me. Bleach in my hair, still scared that my parents will ground me if they found me. I'm a child of a baby boomer who never got over the days of John F. Kennedy Jr. Jesus saves and American made was the way of the future. Hallelujah. Hey, it doesn't work out like they say, and you lose more than you find your way. And I know that the best ain't behind me, but it might be. I'm a child of the 90s. I'm a child of a hometown. First girl I kissed got a...
How are you, Mark?
It's Jamie, right?
Jamie, that's right.
Awesome, man. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, good. I mean, thanks for coming. Thanks for giving us some of your time. Really honored to have you, Mark.
Thank you so much. Where are you at?
Miami, South Florida.
Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite places. I've only been once.
Well, in the winter time, it is nice. I will say that.
I love that place, man. Miami is like, it's kind of like what I thought. It's what I thought Los Angeles was going to be like when I was a kid.
Right, but Nashville, man, Nashville's weather is pretty nice too.
Yeah, the weather's not too bad, but we're landlocked, so.
Yeah, that's true, Mark. So, let me introduce you to my audience. Obviously, incredibly talented, Mark, producer, multi-instrumentalist, unique career you have, lots of hit songs. And of course, your latest album, Seeds of Joy, has been one of the best things to come out this year, Mark, and over 125 million streams. Honored to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. So, let's start with the basics. Obviously, how are you doing, Mark? Like many, I know you've been pretty cooped up with your family. Your wife has a little bit of asthma, so you've been extra precautious. What's your game plan as we finish 2020?
Well, I never really liked leaving my house anyways. So as far as I'm concerned, I love touring and I love being in front of people. So I'm kind of like extreme extrovert, but then, when I'm not doing that stuff, I like just hanging out in my house. And, I have a new studio. And so
Nice.
It's been fun to actually be here. I mean, obviously the circumstances are pretty crazy, but for the most part, I mean, it's been, we're just kind of hang out here. And then, I'm starting to kind of think about new music, but right now it's just kind of promoting this album and doing whatever, things come up. And I'm really proud of it. I worked on it for 3 months when COVID and the lockdown started. 3 or 4 months I recorded it, and then I put it out about a couple weeks ago. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm just doing what I normally do.
Nice, man. Yeah, it's a heck of an album. And obviously, I mean, look, this year has been transformational for everybody. For you, Mark, obviously, in January, I'm sorry, your father passed away from brain cancer. So sorry about that. Our apologies. And of course, that kept you busy in 2019 in a way, just kind of like hanging out with him, and your daughter was born as well. So in a weird way, Mark, was it almost like a blessing in disguise, 2020, that like life kind of forced you to recoup and recharge without the pressures of touring, without the pressures of actually going to radio stations and just kind of like chilling by yourself?
Kind of weird. Yeah, it is kind of weird that I mean, nothing has really happened. And, I'm really thankful that I've gotten to spend this year, and maybe minus 1 or 2 days, I've not missed any moment of my daughter growing up, and that's pretty special.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to I want to try and keep that going even post pandemic, because it is such a great thing to be a dad. I love it.
That's awesome, man. That's great. That's great. Yeah, she must have had a really nice time with you this year, just growing up.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Honestly, it's pretty crazy, but it's fun.
Has she shown any musical inclination?
She's not very good yet, I'll say that. No. She loves music, but she's not like particularly showing she wants to spend time. We'll sit in the studio and she plays some of my little keyboards, but she definitely loves music. Like she gets her dance on and she gets going, and it's quite a thing to witness for sure. So maybe that will translate into playing it. I don't know. I'd
That's great.
I'd rather her love it at all costs than to be able to create it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's fantastic. And let's talk about your early life for a second, Mark, and then we'll kind of like move our way forward, if you will. Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
were born and raised in Buffalo, New York, and your grandfather was a barber during the day, bass player at night. Of course, he played with the legendary Tommy Tedesco, right?
Right.
Tedesco did the songs for Bonanza, Twilight Zone, a bunch of really cool stuff, the MASH, Batman songs. Tell us a little bit about your grandfather. I think that's fascinating. He sounds like a very
Yeah.
special guy.
Yeah, he was a really great musician. I didn't know him a lot as a musician actually, because by the time, I was like, 15, 13, 14, 15, when you're kind of coming of age, he was starting to wind down playing music. And I remember when my dad got sick, and he started giving us all of his guitars that were, my dad had a lot of guitars. He was a guitar player and stuff. But he said, I don't really have a ton of interest to play. Now, and it's been waning a little bit in the last couple of years, although my dad still loved to play. But he said, his father kind of lost interest towards the end of his life. Just he was more, he was busy with woodworking and things like that. But he would play gigs about five nights a week, and then he would cut hair during the day to support his
Mm,
family, which he started cutting hair when he was about 13 because his mother passed away.
mm.
And so he kind of had two different skills that provided for his family, and the one skill I did not benefit from whatsoever, the hair cutting, um, but the other one I did, and so music is really in our family.
That's great. That's great to hear. I mean, you were like, I think 6 when you began playing the drums, Mark. And then in high school you start picking up the guitar and the piano a little bit more. What was it about the guitar that made you kind of like go in that direction, that touched your soul?
I just I don't know, guitar is kind of more. I really like piano too. Piano's like, to me, piano is like overtly emotional. So I don't really even know exactly what I mean by that, but it's like overbearingly emotional. And I don't mean that negatively. It's just such a strong emotion. Whereas guitar is a little more, in my opinion, it's a little more light-handed. It's a lighter touch on the emotion, and so it leaves room for other things. Where piano is just such a big emotional instrument to me when
Yeah,
I approach it. So I don't know. I also like that you can just carry it around and do it anywhere.
true. That's true.
And kind of in my father's fashion, I always have like a guitar with me and stuff. Yeah.
Like a good old troubadour. I love it. I love it, Mark. Um, I mean, your music. Let's talk a little bit about your music for a second. I mean, How Bad We Need Each Other. Let's start with this because this song, it would go on to reach #1 on the iTunes charts, 12 million like streams or whatever on Spotify alone, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Yeah, this was the culmination of like a lot of hard work. What do you remember from this exciting period of your career, Mark?
Well, my career has been much more like, I've had moments that were, larger kind of spikes when there was awareness, publicly to what I was doing. But for the most part, my career has kind of always gone like this,
Yeah,
which I'm fortunate of. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. I mean, the biggest artists in the world, most of the time, their career is going to kind of do something like that. Whereas
right.
mine, I've never really had those massive moments. I just kind of have little successes along the way.
So for our audio
And
audience, for the audio program, Mark is kind of like, he's saying his career is trending like upwards, has always been like, not with huge spikes, but like,
yeah,
consistently not aggressive.
I'm kind of like a working class musician. Like I have to work, I have to do what I do, I have to be supported by fans and by people that love what I do. It's like sometimes, I'll have someone that will order a case of, 500 albums just because they want to give them away to their friends. And it's like, that
Right.
wouldn't matter to like, a number, someone trending on the pop charts or whatever. But it's like, but for me, it's like, that's my livelihood, so I'm very connected to people that follow what I do. And my career really relies on them. But I've definitely had great moments. And one of the beautiful things about not having massive, massive moments, but having success is that, like How Bad We Need Each Other, my latest, it was, it's had like many moments where it's raised to like the public consciousness on some level. You know, it's like where even recently a 12-year-old demo that I had of it resurfaced, and it was heard by Samsung, by their ad marketing team, and they loved it. And that was a 12-year-old demo. I think I spent $200 or $300 to make, and they heard that, and they used it in their global campaign. And so,
oh, cool. Yeah.
You know, if it was like, it's not that it wouldn't get used if it was like a massive pop song, you know, at one point or another, but I mean, it wouldn't it wouldn't mean as much to me if it was, because financially at that point it's such a windfall when things are, when they do go up the pop charts. But my success, like I said, is a little bit more like incremental, so it's all good.
Definitely love it. I mean, at least it's going in the upward direction. The speed is something else, but yeah, that your quality is gonna just keep going up, man. Seeds of Joy just came out November 13th. Such a great album, Mark. Such a great album. I mean, American Songwriter raved about it. Rolling Stone raved about it. I think it's your best piece. And there's a couple songs there that I just want to quickly touch on. I mean, Seed of Joy.
Please.
I mean, I'm gonna share with you. In September, I was in Sedona, Arizona. I got divorced this year, whatever. So that was like, this song resonated a lot with me, Mark, because it was all about the message of like the mountains and the universe. Like, it's gonna be okay. There will be laughter. The seeds of joy will start to slow. It starts so small. Just a stunningly like beautiful concept. So I wanted to ask you about it. Where did it come from, and when did you start harboring it?
Yeah. Well, most of the album was written when my dad, or a lot of the album was written when my dad got sick. But part of the goal with the album was to kind of put out anything that fans loved over the years when I played live, or just anything that was kind of on my mind that I had that was just sitting there, just to kind of clear the way for new creativity. And that song was actually quite an older song. I wrote that song actually when my parents split up about 10 years ago. And I went and surprised my mom on a trip to her house. She had moved into a new house, and I knew she was really upset about it. And so I surprised her. I didn't tell her I was flying to Buffalo, and I flew in and I helped her paint her new house.
That's nice.
And it was right on the river. And I wrote that song about that moment in time. So, like I said, I mean, this album really is dedicated to my father, but that really is like a moment. That was actually like a moment 10 years ago that actually had more to do with my mother. Yeah.
So I guess it's an emotion that has you can use anytime.
Yeah, I did rewrite it a little bit. I think probably one of the reasons I didn't put it out before is I didn't love all the lyrics, and so I rewrote it a little bit. And but the emotion's still the same, and it still came from the same place. And I think something about the title, I just felt like it was a nice title for the album. I felt like people need joy right now. It
was meant to come out now.
It doesn't really matter what you think or what you believe or whatever, like at this point in the world, it's like it's all pretty there's so many auxiliary forces weighing on all of us. No one really gets to think what they think in a vacuum anymore, because information's so much more accessible, and that's really straining on people. We haven't really had this experience in most of human history to have this type of access to information. So I just felt like I wanted to put something that had joy in the world, and I thought this is a good title.
Love it, dude. Absolutely, that's great. You spoke about your songwriting, so I do want to ask you about that. I mean, but before, I mean, Ain't My Home, and Favorite Part, great tunes as well. Perfectly produced. The imagery, just love it, man. When you're working, Mark, your songwriting, because people think being a musician is all kinds of fun. They see you on your covers, crossing that pedestrian bridge in Nashville, looking cool, playing live. Like, people think it's fun, but it's work. It's real work. The actual work of writing lyrics and writing music. Do you go somewhere, Mark? Is it like you tell your wife, honey, I'm gonna go to work 9 to 5. I'm gonna lock myself in the guest room, or is it like when inspiration strikes at you when you're with your daughter, or just random moments?
I think, I mean, it's definitely a mix. I mean, I kind of work every day. It is a lot of hard work. I mean, I don't know, maybe for other people it's easier, but I've always had to put in my time, and I wouldn't say that I necessarily get out what I put in. You put in, this much work and you get this much back. I don't know if it really works like that, but I think you want to have a pretty steady path that you're walking, where you're incrementally getting better at something. And that's what I'm always trying to do. And then the inspiration part is definitely a massive component of it. I mean, it's like we were putting my daughter down to bed last night, and I'm making the bottle, and then I got about 5 minutes before I'm needed, and this song idea kind of came to me. So I just sit down and just kind of pluck it out on guitar and kind of sing something, and I might write something down on my phone. And then what I'm going to do is just have that there. I'll have a reference of it. I'll make some kind of categorization of what it was that I just did. And then, when I go spend my 9 to 5 here in my studio, this is where I work every day.
Very nice.
When I go to my studio, then I'm going to like go back to that. And it's good for 2 reasons. One, because you catch the inspiration where it is, but you also the next day have perspective on that inspiration. It might not actually be as inspired as you thought it was in the moment, or it might be more inspired than you thought it was. So in some sense, it's almost better than, for me, I don't actually like, when I get the inspiration, like writing it all down. Then sometimes that works, but I like actually stepping back and 24 hours, 48 hours, a week, 2 weeks, a year later, listening back to an idea and saying, actually, that's really good. Now I should work on it. And that's when the work starts.
Nice. Very interesting. Very interesting. I do have to ask you, because my producer said you have to ask Marc, because we were listening to your stuff in research, and she loved the song about the 90s. So she said, you got to ask him about the 90s song, growing up in the 90s or whatever. That was such a fun song to listen to. What can you tell us about that song?
Well, I had some of those ideas. I grew up in Buffalo, New York in the 90s, and I don't know, I just wanted to write a song that was like about, the seemingly not universal heartbreak, but like, I feel like people my age were, we were kind of told we could be anything and do anything. But there's just a reality that's set in for a lot of it. And I've experienced it probably the least, because I didn't choose a traditional career path. But a lot of my friends that have, they went to college, they thought there was this promise on the other side, but we're kind of right in this generation where some of those promises are kind of crumbling apart. And so what we're left with is disillusionment
and debt.
And debt. Exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. And so I wanted to write a song about that. And, but there's also a lot of references to my hometown. And, like my dad always said, he always said he remembered the day that John F. Kennedy was assassinated and how sad it was. And he was like, I'll never forget that day. And then he just little passing things. Like he said once, I'll never forget the days of John F. Kennedy. And John F. Kennedy Jr. rhymes better with whatever came before that in that line. So it was slightly adapted. But the point is, there's a lot of my dad actually infused in that song. He was a college quarterback, and so some football references. And
It's wonderful. Wonderful, Marc. Well, listen, you've been so generous with your time. Let me just
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Listen, it's been a pleasure. Like, really, one of the best things, I think one of the things people will look back upon this year with gratitude is the music. I think there's been some unforgettable music to dig into. And I think your album, Seeds of Joy, Marc, is right at the top. One of the best things we've heard all year, man. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you.
All right. And take care. Have a happy new year and 2021 upwards.
We'll see you soon, man.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.